Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. I'm looking forward to talking with college fund specialist Brad Baldridge, company Taming the High Cost of College, tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. That kind of sums up in a nutshell, Brad, what you do, and I'm looking forward to jumping into this and chatting with you about it. And one of the things that I want to kick off with is talking about, college is so expensive. Doesn't matter where you go today, it seems. And you're helping people look at ways and scholarships and investing. What's the biggest lesson people are learning once they talk to you?
Yeah, I think for most, it's how complicated it can be and how there's often lots that you can do. It just depends on your particular situation. So, and yes, I mean, college is going to be painful for most families, but that's, we can make it a little bit less painful. It's certainly worth spending the time at it now.
Yeah. How do we uncomplicate it? Because I just went through it. My son is a senior. He's going to be a senior in college. My daughter is going to be a freshman. How do we uncomplicate it?
No, I don't think you can necessarily, right? I mean, it's kind of like taxes where, you hire the experts, you do all the things that you can do, or I guess if you want it simple, just write a big check.
Yeah.
And that's I think the challenge around college is it's going to take some effort and some planning. And it's another thing on the list that most families, once you have kids, have to deal with. Whereas in the past, you and I were going to college, we end of junior year, early senior year, we visited a college or two, we took a test or two, and off we went. We didn't make a big deal of it.
Yeah.
But, again, when I was in college, it wasn't unusual to run into somebody that had been there 6 years because they changed majors a couple times, changed schools a couple times.
Right.
But it didn't matter because it didn't cost that much. So it's not like it was just time for them to figure out their life.
Yeah.
Most of the time, we don't want our students doing that anymore.
No, absolutely. No, correct. What's the biggest lesson people don't learn too late?
Right. I think starting too late is what they learn too late, right? Is that it's complicated and it's going to take some time. So in the past, like I said, we would do it early, senior year, late junior year. I think most families should really start to work on it late sophomore year. Certainly. And again, we've got a challenge where a lot of students aren't mature enough at that time. But parents can start working on it sophomore year where they can start figuring out, are they going to qualify for need-based aid or merit aid? What would it look like if you sent a kid to your local state school? What would it look like if you sent the kid to the local private school? Just as a kind of a baseline, start thinking about, well, what will it cost? Because, the average state school right now is about $28,000, and that's all in. That's tuition, room and board, books, fees, and beer and pizza. The whole cost of a typical student for a year. The average private school is $60,000.
Yeah.
So they're big numbers, and that's list price. What you actually pay is often substantially less, especially at the private schools. Understanding the game, it's like buying a car where the game changed with buying a car. There's a lot of information on the internet now, and what the list price is, and what the invoice price is, and if you want to spend the time to figure it out, theoretically, you could save a little money on a car.
Yeah.
It's the same on steroids with college, where the discounts are so much bigger, where you could go to that $90,000 a year school and pay, $20,000, $50,000, zero, just depends on where your student fits into the mix.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, right? It takes a village today. It takes a team, it takes mentors like you to help people get into real time or ahead of real time in these type of situations. And so how do you mentor somebody? How do you guide them when, you're talking 28,000 to 60,000, many times more? Where do you guide them first? Where do they go if they're looking for scholarships or, if they haven't invested the right way? So what is the first step that you would guide them to?
Right. So And that's the challenge. I think it's a process, and the first step for some is different than others. But if you know you're going to qualify for need-based aid, or you think you might, well, then you need to get into that need-based aid planning. And by the way, if you're, the question that comes up is, well, how much do you have to earn before you don't qualify? And I say at $1 million plus, you're not going to qualify. At 500,000, you're not likely to qualify. Anything less than that, you could qualify, but it's hard to know. So it's a much bigger number. Now, I have seen families earning 75 or 100,000 not qualify. So I'm not saying you're automatically going to qualify if you earn 250 or that type of thing, but you could. So until you understand how it works, you can't assume based on the way it happened with your brother-in-law or something like that, because there's such a big variability. One of the big indicators of whether you're going to qualify for aid, as an example, is the cost of the college. So if you go to a very expensive college, you're more likely to qualify for aid at higher incomes. And, starting there, will I qualify for need-based aid? Have we saved some money? What kind of schools are we considering? Is it just the local state school? Or is it, again, some people will have what I would call the far and wide kid, right? The one that's saying, well, I want to go to Texas or California or maybe the East Coast, and we need to visit all these different places and all these different schools. Well, that's a much bigger project than the kid that's like, well, I'll pick from these 3 state schools, or maybe just go to the local community college or tech college to get started. It's a different process. So understanding, kind of what you're getting into. And then there's the process of actually working with the student, right? Parents figure out their piece, the student figures out their piece, and then you work together on testing and visits and those types of things. And
well, I have a question for you. So what percentage of people get scholarships when they apply to schools? Is there like
well, and again, scholarships is a challenging word as well, right? There are many private schools that right on their website say things like 99% of our applicants win scholarships. So if you want scholarships, just apply to that college. You'll get one. Now, a lot of times it's a token award, right? The school is 75,000 and everybody gets at least 5,000. But if you're a stronger student, maybe you get 25 or 50. But 5,000 off of a $75,000 school is, not what people think of when they think of a scholarship. But technically, that is a scholarship. So I think that's the challenge. Then there's the private scholarships, right? Where Coca-Cola Foundation offers a scholarship, and Dell has scholarships, and the local businesses have scholarships, and all that type of stuff. That's a much smaller piece of the pie. There's like 60 billion from the colleges and like 10 billion from all the other sources.
Yeah. The way what you're talking about is, you get 5,000 here, X amount of thousand here. It sounds like what you're saying is scholarships are more just kind of, they're not as great as sometimes they may seem from the outside.
Correct.
And you talked about this in the beginning that, college has gotten so, you could do it in 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and it didn't matter. It wasn't as much. There was a recent article, I think it was that Vanderbilt is going to be the first college to be $100,000. Is college leaning to be only for the rich?
Yes and no. So I guess one of the things that you have to remember is college also means many things. Most of us are thinking of the kid that rolls out of high school, goes off to college, lives on campus, has that experience. But that's less than half of college students right now. The other half are adult learners, grad level, all the different other things that are going on. So that's one piece of it. But yes, the on-campus experience is getting more expensive. Now, it's not growing as fast as it used to. They've kind of hit some ceilings. So a lot of colleges that are raising their prices in order to attract students are also raising their scholarships and other aid in order to still attract students. So they don't have unlimited pricing power. They just can't raise and raise and raise. Harvard can. I mean, Harvard has not reached their limit. They could charge $200,000 per year per student, and probably fill their classes because there's enough people that would just pay the price.
Yeah.
But most colleges that don't have the cachet of the top schools have that balance of, well, we can say we're 75, but for a lot of kids to get them to come, we're going to have to bring our prices to 40 or 30. Be reasonably competitive with the state schools. And what that means depends on the pricing power of that particular college.
Yeah. Let's do a mini business course on how to even, find a scholarship or how to invest. You tell me, you pick how to find a scholarship or how to, plan and invest for college. What should we do a mini business course on?
Right. I would say, let's talk about just planning and investing, because I've got some free resources on my website that helps with that.
Let's give three ways to invest and plan for investing for college. What would number one be?
Right. So it's understanding the prices as far as planning for college. So I've got cost of colleges by state on my website. So you can go there and you can get all the colleges in your state that, all the 4 years, and it'll say things like, well, this is the state school, it's $30,000 list price, but for incomes that below 25,000, it's $8,000 net price. And for incomes over 110,000, it's 26,000 net price, or whatever the numbers are. So now all of a sudden you have a more realistic target of when families say, well, our goal is to pay for what it would cost to go to a state school. And if the kids want to do more than that, then that's on them. We'll help them borrow money, something like that. So that's kind of the start of, well, this is what your state schools will actually look like. So if you just promised, that we're going to pay for the state school, what was that promise? In round numbers, it's typically about $100,000 for the 4 years.
Yeah.
If your income is lower, then you might get, that might go down. But what I tell people that earn, more than 100,000, more than 125,000, somewhere in that neighborhood, if you don't have a reason as to why you're going to get less than full price at your local state schools, then you probably won't. If you have the basketball player, then then you have a shot at an athletic scholarship. If your state has some sort of merit program or has some sort of need-based program that you're going to qualify for, well, then yes, you have a shot at that.
Yeah.
But in a lot of states, for a lot of families, you're just going to pay full price at your local state school. They are the low-cost leader. They have a low price, and they don't offer a lot of discounts. But if you look at a lot of the private schools, they will have a price that may be just very similar net price after, so instead of starting at 30, they start at 60, but after all your scholarships and grants and different things, their net cost might be 20, 30, 40, just depending on the student. Sometimes you can actually get a better price at that private school. Yeah. Often you can get a competitive price, plus or minus 5 or 10,000.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I know you started off saying it sounds complicated, and the more we talk about it, the more complicated it sounds. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why, it's just going to take time. It's no one piece of it is complicated, but it's, for most families, by the time you put 3 kids through school, you'll be the expert.
Yeah.
But of course, by then you don't need your expertise, right? It's that struggle of going from, I don't know what I'm doing, I've never done this before, to, okay, just like always raising kids, right? The first one's always the guinea pig of, well, I've learned a few things I shouldn't do with the next one.
Yeah.
Or this worked well, or this didn't. And then of course kids are different. So what worked with your oldest may not work with the next student.
Yeah.
Depending on their goals, et cetera. So, so you start at that big picture of, we're going to save and invest. We're going to try and get as much aid as we can. And then we have, the actual strategies and tactics.
Well, let's back up for a second.
If I do this, I'll get more aid.
I want to pause you for a second and back up. Let's talk about you have a baby. When do you start investing? What type of program do you start investing in? Is it there's multiple college programs out there. What's the best way to start investing? Looking at it on a yearly basis, a monthly basis, when they're born, when they turn 5. What's the best flow?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a business coach. What's the best way to advertise? I mean, that's right. It's a challenge, right? Okay. Well, yeah, save consistently, but where? Well, it depends on your financial, tax situation. How much are you saving? How much are you committing to college versus, so every, again, there's various investments that have tax advantages, various investments that are very flexible, and some that are high risk, some that are low risk. So, I mean, that would get to be a very complicated process. But if you look at that from the big picture, for families that say we're going to pay a lot of money for college because we've decided we're going to cover all the state school, or we're going to pay for even a private school or whatever, and we're going to make it happen, and we feel it's our responsibility. Well, by definition, then you need to start saving and investing, or moving resources in that direction, which by definition means you're going to have a smaller house, less vacations, drive your cars longer, whatever it might be, than if you didn't do that, right? Obviously, you're siphoning off some of your resources for college, and nothing wrong with that, or nothing that you have to do either. But I think what happens a lot of times is people, come and see me with a 16 or 17-year-old, and they're shocked and saying, well, yes, we make good income, but we needed all the income to cover all the bills.
Yeah.
And it's like, because our lifestyle grew and we kind of neglected that college piece, and it surprises people. It's not that people can't afford to pay for college, is they didn't plan well, and all of a sudden it just springs up on them. For some. I mean, again, and if you're in the lower incomes, college is much more difficult. Right. I would agree with that. But also, if you're in the lower incomes, then there's other aid and other ways to help. So that's kind of the unintended consequence of need-based aid, right? Is if you have low income, you get enough help that it's possible but painful. If you're middle income, you get less help, so it's possible but painful. And if you're high income, you don't get much help.
Yeah.
It's very expensive, but it's possible, but it's painful. So they've kind of made it so it's always going to be painful until, I mean, again, if you're a brain surgeon or something, then you're making $3 million. Well, you write the check and don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say my suggestion would be start early, because then you get to experience compound interest, which is, and that is really, really important, and start young. All right, let's do a quick speed round. Brad, what book would you recommend, or is there a book that people should read that would help them with this? And or what's a book that's had a big impact on you in general?
Yeah, so there's not a lot of good college books out there, unfortunately. The Price You Will Pay and Who Gets In and Why are two good books on the process of, they define the problem really well. What they don't provide is much of a solution. I think they're very useful for you understanding. So Who Gets In and Why talks a lot about kind of that top 100 colleges, right? If you want to get into NYU or Caltech or some of the big name brand schools, it's a different process than if you're looking to just go again to the local state school or maybe your flagship state school. So understanding that prestige pressure and how that all works, that's useful. Again, there's not a lot of explanation of the problem. What the solution isn't real clear. And then what you pay is similar, but on the financial side of college.
Best piece of wisdom you would give somebody today who's starting to invest in college, for college?
Just do it. I mean, save more than you think you need. And again, it's a balance, right? And then you put some of that flexible if you feel you need to, but just build your overall net worth. Worry about college, when you have a 16-year-old or a 14-year-old, when you realize college is real.
It's fair.
Some kids aren't going to college. Some kids are going to get the full ride. And the college system as we know it, theoretically, is going to get disrupted someday. Kind of like, print newspapers and books were disrupted, theoretically.
All right. Tell everybody where they can connect with you and learn more about you, Brad.
Everything we do is at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. A number of free resources, our podcast. And if you want to reach out directly, there's a phone numbers there, or you can sign up for an appointment. And just get out there and do it.
That's great. Well, I appreciate your time. College is such an expense, becoming such a bigger expense for so many people, and something that as like with anything, I want to extract one thing that everybody says from the show, which is save more than you think you need. I think that's great advice, and start early. Think community, if Brad can help you, please reach out to him. Again, the website is tamingthehighcostofcollege.com, and you can reach me if you want to talk about any business coaching at jondwoskin.com. Brad, thanks for sharing your insights on your free resources, ways to look at college, and how to and thanks for being a mentor to take the complicated and making it a little less complicated for many people who are out there, because it is a complicated road. So thanks so much, and thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.